The front door to our house barely gets any use. We typically go in through the side entrance by the garage or through the sliding glass doors that lead out to the patio. To the right of the main entryway is the formal living room, a room that's perfectly maintained but rarely used. On the left, a hallway branches off to 3 bedrooms, including our large master suite and a guest bathroom. The living room is always dark, thanks to the heavy drapes drawn over the massive windows. In there sits a pristine white couch, the kind with a camelback design, positioned against the far wall, flanked by 2 large wingback chairs. All the furniture faces a walnut coffee table. It was never a room of much significance until that day. Late that morning, I found myself seated in one of those wingback chairs, facing away from the arch that connected the living room to the entryway. In that chair, I'd often sat and thought about my life, especially the mess my marriage to Laura had become. Lately, I'd been wrestling with the idea of ending things with her, but the thought of dividing up our friends, our home, and my finances was terrifying. I could already picture the courtroom battles, the legal fees, and half of my hard-earned savings disappearing overnight. But the worst part? Dealing with Laura herself. She had a way of dragging out arguments for days, even weeks, over the smallest issues. She always had to win, no matter how ridiculous the fight was. In her absence, I pondered how vindictive she could be, how she would find reasons, real or imagined, to keep me off balance, always accusing me of something. The moment she came back from grocery shopping, I knew I should have hidden in the bedroom to avoid another argument. But it was too late. I heard the familiar creak of the side door opening and braced myself. She was home. Laura always found something to nitpick, whether it was a dirty dish left in the sink or some made-up grievance. It didn't matter. I stayed as still as I could in that chair, hoping she wouldn't catch me sitting in the living room. If she did, there'd be another fight. Arguments had become a constant in our 10 years of marriage. I used to try to smooth things over quickly, figuring it was better than dealing with her relentless badgering. I'd apologize, give in, and try to move on. But lately, I'd come to realize that no matter how many fights I settled, there was always another one lurking around the corner. As I sat there, I heard her putting the frozen groceries away. I knew she'd soon demand I bring in the rest from the car. I waited, not wanting to face her yet. Then I heard her footsteps, light but unmistakable, approaching the entryway. She must have stopped at the threshold, scanning the hallway to make sure she was alone. Laura always liked to make sure she had the upper hand, even before she spoke to me. Instead of calling out for help, she must have decided I was outside, busy with the backyard project she always bugged me about. Then, I heard her phone beep as she dialed a number. Still hidden from her view, I overheard her talking to someone on the other end. Her voice was casual, but something about the conversation didn't sit right with me. She mentioned meeting up on Thursday and said she'd call after 1 o'clock, arranging some kind of plan. I could feel my pulse quicken. She was talking to someone in a tone that was far too familiar, far too comfortable. After she hung up, I stayed still, listening as she walked toward the sliding glass door, calling out for me like I was in the backyard. My heart pounded. In that tense moment, I reminded myself not to panic. I had learned that long ago. Stay calm, breathe, keep a blank expression. Finally, I stood and made my way into the den, casually saying, "I'm here. Just got back from the bathroom. I've got to run to the store for some gazebo parts." I avoided eye contact as I moved toward the kitchen and the side door, keeping my voice steady, even though my mind was racing. Laura didn't even glance up from her phone as I walked by. She only commented on how red my face was, reminding me to wear a hat to avoid sunburn. Then, as always, she ordered me to bring in the rest of the groceries before heading out. Dropping her phone into her purse, she went outside to check on the gazebo. I grabbed her phone off the counter, quickly memorizing the last number she'd called, and put it back. I finished bringing in the groceries and then left in my truck, but I didn't go to the hardware store. Instead, I pulled into the nearby park, my mind reeling. For the next 15 minutes, I replayed everything I'd heard. I was certain now Laura was having an affair. And judging by the way she had spoken, it wasn't just some fling. The man she'd called, Dad. But I knew it wasn't her real father. The area code was local, and her parents lived clear across the country in Oregon. I sat there, furious. I was working my ass off to support this woman while she fooled around behind my back. Who the hell was she calling, Dad? In the early days of our marriage, she had called me that sometimes, strangely, during intimate moments. But she hadn't done that in years. I'd thought she was hinting at wanting kids, but we had agreed not to have any a couple years into our marriage. And now, here I was, sitting in my truck, realizing I had been a fool. I sat in my truck, thinking over what to do next. Her lover would likely slip in through the back gate on Thursday, probably walking down the alley. I thought about ambushing him there, but realized I'd also have to deal with Laura. If the guy was on foot, his car had to be parked somewhere nearby. It hit me. The lover was probably leaving his car at the park just a few blocks away. Figuring out who he was became my top priority. The obvious move was to call the number I'd seen on Laura's phone. I could have someone else call, acting like they dialed the wrong number. Maybe a woman, since that might get him to talk. But who could make that call? And who else might know what was going on? The answer was clear. Anna, Laura's best friend. If anyone knew about this affair, it would be her. They'd been inseparable for years, and if Anna didn't know, then I doubted anyone else did. Laura's sister? No chance. They hadn't been close since her sister's nasty divorce, and they barely even spoke anymore. But could I trust Anna? I had known her as long as Laura, and while we were friends too, women usually stuck together. Anna was married to Greg, a guy 15 years older than her, and they seemed like the happiest couple around. I figured Anna would tell Greg everything, but would she spill anything about Laura? And as for Greg, well, we weren't super close, but he was a decent guy. I had a feeling if Greg knew something, he wouldn't keep it from me. I decided to pay Greg a visit. He volunteered part-time at the local golf course on weekends, helping out in exchange for free rounds during the week. On the drive over, I rehearsed how I'd approach him. I couldn't just come out with it. If Greg told Anna, and Anna told Laura, the whole thing would blow up. I had to be careful. I found Greg driving a golf cart, checking the conditions near the 7th hole. As we rode together, I casually brought up a hypothetical question. If someone told you something in confidence, would you keep it from Anna? I asked. Or do you two share everything, even stuff that's supposed to stay secret? Greg shot me a puzzled look, but kept driving. After a few moments of silence, I added, just curious. Do you and Anna always tell each other everything? No matter what? He pulled the cart over and turned to face me. You're not asking a hypothetical, are you? Just say what's on your mind. I hesitated, but there was no backing out now. Can you keep this between us? I asked. I need to know I can trust you. Greg nodded slowly, but made it clear that while he wouldn't run and tell Anna, he also wouldn't lie to her if she asked him directly. That was enough for me. I took a deep breath and asked, do you know if Laura's having an affair? Greg didn't hesitate. He spilled the story all at once, almost like he had been waiting for me to ask. It went back to New Year's Eve at the Petersons' party. Most of the guests were outside, waiting for the fireworks, when Anna went upstairs to the bathroom. She wasn't feeling well after too much champagne. While she was in there, she heard someone trying to open the door. When she came out, she heard noises down the hall. She followed the sound and saw Laura at the end of the hallway, pinned against the wall by some big guy, her legs wrapped around his waist. Laura saw Anna standing there and smiled, waving her off like it was no big deal. On the way home, Anna told Greg everything. She thought about telling me but decided to confront Laura first. Laura had explained that it was a one-time thing. Too much alcohol, a fight between us, and the guy, Buddy Jackson, making a move on her. Anna, knowing Buddy's reputation as a bully who married into money, didn't want to ruin our marriage over one bad night. Greg told Anna that if I ever asked him directly, he wouldn't lie, but they both hoped it was a one-off incident. As Greg finished his story, I could feel my blood boiling. It wasn't just that one time, I muttered. I overheard Laura on the phone with him an hour ago. She's still seeing him. Greg's face hardened as the reality sunk in. Let's go back to my place, he said, shaking his head. We'll talk to Anna and figure this out. We left the golf course in separate cars, both knowing things were about to get even more complicated. Greg broke the news to Anna, and she sat down, tears welling up. She had always had high hopes for Laura and me, willing to help however she could. But when she learned that the affair was still ongoing, her expression changed. Anna felt betrayed, just as Laura had betrayed me. Up until now, she had trusted Laura's promise that it was over, basing her decision to stay silent on that lie. Anna, there's something I need your help with, I said. I looked at Laura's phone and got the number she called. Do you think you could call him? Pretend it's a wrong number and see if you can get his name. I just need to confirm who it is she's seeing. Anna, who worked remotely as an editor and had a background in theater, quickly agreed. With her polished English accent and sharp social skills, she could pull off a convincing act. She dialed the number with the phone on speaker. Hi, this is Buddy Jackson, the man answered. Anna blinked. Oh, sorry, wrong number, she said before hanging up. She sighed, clearly frustrated. Well, that was pretty underwhelming, she muttered. But at least we now knew for certain it was Buddy Jackson. The affair hadn't ended after all. We talked about what to do next, and I insisted that I wanted to catch them together on Thursday, the day I suspected they were meeting again. I wanted undeniable proof when I confronted Laura, something she couldn't lie her way out of. Hiring a detective seemed unnecessary and expensive. Plus, I wasn't sure how often Laura was seeing Buddy before Thursday, so I needed a quicker way to gather evidence. We sat quietly for a moment, thinking. Then Anna suggested something bold, a mole. What if we get one of Laura's close friends to dig for the truth? She proposed. I was hesitant, but Anna was firm. Never underestimate an angry woman, she said, her voice steady. I've had enough of Laura and how she's been treating everyone. I can spin a story that'll make her spill everything. Over the next hour, we came up with a plan. Anna would call Laura and pretend to be in a similar situation, needing advice. They'd meet for coffee on Sunday morning, and Anna would record everything. Greg even offered to modify one of Anna's old purses to conceal a small video camera, making sure we had all the evidence we needed. Anna contacted Laura right away, referencing a situation from New Year's Eve to make it seem more urgent. Laura agreed to meet her, clearly intrigued by Anna's newfound assertiveness. Sunday morning came, and Anna arrived early at the coffee shop. She picked a secluded table under an awning and set up the purse, carefully arranging it so the camera had a clear view of where Laura would sit. She ran a few audio tests, making sure the setup was perfect. The weather was calm, with no wind to interfere with the sound. Greg had done a great job securing the camera, hiding the lens and microphone within the purse's pattern. When Laura arrived, Anna asked her to grab the coffee, saying she'd hold their spot. Once Laura left, Anna pressed the button to start the recording. When Laura returned with the drinks, Anna casually confirmed the camera was rolling. After some small talk, Anna shared her fake dilemma. She told Laura that there was a guy who had shown interest in her, and she didn't know what to do. He's attractive, she admitted, and it's been a while since Greg and I have been, well, intimate. She went on to say that while Greg trusted her completely and she had never cheated, she was feeling tempted now and needed advice. Laura's reaction was immediate. Go for it, girl, she encouraged, laughing. Honestly, I can't believe you haven't done this already. Greg's a nice guy, but let's face it, he's past his prime. You're still young and gorgeous, Anna. I've always thought you were too good for him. Anna was taken aback by Laura's lack of remorse, so she pressed further. So, about New Year's, was that really just a one-time thing? Laura leaned in, lowering her voice. Honey, I won't lie to you now. I had to say that back then because I was worried you'd tell Paul. But now that you're in the same boat, we can be honest with each other. I'm still seeing Buddy, and let me tell you, it's been wild. She went on, detailing how she had first gotten involved with Buddy at the Halloween party months ago. Laura described how Buddy had been watching her all night, and how they'd slipped away to meet on the landing, eventually ending up in a bathroom together. She didn't hold back, emphasizing Buddy's charm and how the attraction was mutual. Are you still seeing him? Anna asked, trying to keep her tone casual. Yep, Laura replied without hesitation. In fact, we're meeting again next week. And this time, it'll be at my place in my bed. Anna, feigning concern, asked about me. Don't you feel guilty about Paul at all? Laura waved her hand dismissively. Paul? Please. Paul's my husband, not my lover. He's there to take care of the house, the bills, all the boring stuff. Buddy's there for the fun. something Paul could never give me. Honestly, I treat Paul like a good little pet. He does what I want, and I make sure he thinks I'm faithful. You wouldn't believe how easy it is. Just a little perfume here, a few tricks there. He's so docile. It's like having a loyal puppy. Anna listened in disbelief as Laura laid it all out. No guilt, no hesitation. Laura reveled in the control she had over our relationship, explaining to Anna how much freedom she enjoyed, always knowing where I was and never worrying about getting caught with her lovers. Anna asked her if she'd had other affairs, and Laura replied that there were too many to count. The first one, she said, had started in the first year of our marriage. She picked him up at a supermarket, never told him her real name, and they spent 6 months bouncing between hotel rooms until he got too attached. After that, she said, she learned to be careful with younger guys, sticking mostly to one-offs. She even mentioned a salesman friend who was into some kinky stuff. He worked well for her since he only came into town a few times a year. But Buddy had lasted longer than most of them. Laura described him as a hound with a hole-splitting tool and shared more about his clueless wife, Anita, who worked while Buddy played around. Laura said she liked being in control of when Buddy could visit. Anna, still following the plan, asked Laura about her latest fling. She ran through her made-up story about a fictional lover named Rod, though the details didn't really matter. Laura believed every word and encouraged Anna to go for it, telling her to take full advantage of the situation. Anna expressed amazement at Laura's control, saying she doubted she could ever treat Greg the way Laura treated me. Laura explained it as natural, comparing the dynamic to something out of the animal kingdom. She positioned herself as the alpha in the relationship and encouraged Anna to take the same role with Greg, promising that she would feel free if she embraced it. Start with Rod, Laura said, and enjoy every second of it. Greg will still be there, playing his submissive role. The conversation turned to more serious matters when Laura asked Anna about STDs and whether she used protection. Anna told her she usually insisted on it, but with Buddy, it had been different because of his aggressive nature. She even admitted there was a time when she got scared because it hurt to pee, but a doctor told her it was just irritation from rough encounters. Laura casually mentioned that she had once contracted gonorrhea but managed to keep it hidden from me by manipulating the situation, like sending me out to play guitar with my friends while she took her antibiotics. Anna, eager to get the recording back to Greg and me, wrapped up the conversation and thanked Laura for meeting. Laura was none the wiser and seemed content as she left. When Anna and Greg watched the video later, they were stunned. Greg barely recognized Laura, shocked by the way she spoke about me, so different from how she acted when others were around. I was shaken too, though not surprised, having grown used to the idea that Laura was capable of almost anything. During the conversation, Anita Jackson's name came up. Anna expressed concerns about what Anita knew, if anything, about Buddy's cheating. She wondered if it was time to tell Anita the truth, but worried it might blow everything up. Anita, who had seemed deeply unhappy with Buddy's bullying ways, was a wild card. Anna suggested that talking to Anita could impact our next steps and wanted Laura's input on how to handle the situation. After leaving Laura, Anna contacted Anita that same evening. Introducing herself, she reminded Anita that they'd spoken at a few parties. Once Anita confirmed she could talk freely, Anna revealed the truth. Buddy had been cheating on her with someone Anna knew. There was silence on the other end before Anita's sniffles turned into quiet sobs. Anita opened up, sharing how frustrated she'd been with Buddy for years. She explained that Buddy had promised to change after a previous incident about a year ago, but now it was clear he hadn't. She had taken him back on the condition that he would never cheat again, warning him she'd leave if it ever happened. Anita thanked Anna for telling her and outlined her next steps. She calmly explained that Buddy would never sleep in her bed again. She even mentioned a strict prenuptial agreement that would leave him with nothing if he was caught cheating. Buddy, she said, was useless, fit only for attending social events and chasing affairs. Now that she knew the truth, she was determined to make him face the consequences. Anita agreed to gather evidence before taking action. Plans were made for someone to pick up the preliminary evidence from my office the next day. Anna set up the meeting, and I was scheduled to stop by her office at 1 p.m. on Monday. I arrived on time, video camera in hand, ready to put an end to the lies. I introduced myself to Mrs. Jackson, the wife of the man involved with my wife. Placing the camera on her desk, I queued up the relevant part of the recording and played it. Though the screen visibility was faint, the audio came through clearly. As Mrs. Jackson listened, tears welled in her eyes. I offered a gesture of sympathy, acknowledging her familiarity with Buddy's behavior over the years. Once the recording ended, I shared my plan with Anita, making it clear that her involvement was optional. However, I extended the offer nonetheless. Anita opened up about the years of intimidation and manipulation she'd suffered at Buddy's hands. She expressed her desire to make him suffer in return. When she asked if things could get violent, I admitted that it might get messy, but reassured her that I had no plans for actual harm. After the meeting with Anita, work became a mere distraction. Laura's harsh words from the video played over in my mind, and they hit me hard. Though I acknowledged some truth in her remarks, I felt a surge of anger at how she had belittled me. She saw me as weak, but I wasn't the wimp she thought I was. In fact, the more I thought about it, the more I was determined to show her a different side of myself on Thursday. Any thoughts of reconciliation were long gone. The trust had been shattered beyond repair. Tuesday and Wednesday passed in a haze. My productivity at the office plummeted as I reviewed the possible outcomes of Thursday's confrontation. The scenarios kept running through my mind, reminding me of the fragility of well-laid plans. I considered various approaches, knowing I'd need to improvise when the moment came. I also spent extra time honing my physical readiness, preparing for any possible confrontation. At home, the tension was palpable. Our conversations were minimal, limited to basic necessities. Laura, always the one in control, watched me closely, trying to gauge what was going on. She could sense the shift, and though she didn't know what I was planning, she was clearly trying to regain her usual dominance. Ironically, she was probably looking forward to Thursday herself, anticipating another passionate encounter with Buddy and whatever excitement she thought that would bring. On Tuesday night, while Laura was in the shower, I rummaged through my dresser for an old keepsake, a pair of steel knuckles passed down from my grandfather. Both my father and grandfather had served in the military. Grandpa had brought these knuckles back from Normandy, taken from a German soldier as a war trophy. As I held them, I remembered Grandpa's words of caution. He'd told me they were only to be used in dire circumstances. This, I thought, was that moment. I was at war. Laura and Buddy had been playing dirty, and now I had to prepare for battle. Thursday morning, I forced myself to eat a big breakfast, knowing I wouldn't touch lunch. My stomach churned with nervous energy, but I needed the fuel. After pacing around the office all morning, I headed home, making sure to deposit some necessary items in the guest bedroom, ready for whatever was to come. By 1 o'clock, I was changed into jeans, a t-shirt, and sturdy shoes, ready to act. I checked my pockets, phone, keys, steel knuckles, and wallet. I called Laura from my desk phone, using a calm, non-threatening tone. I told her I'd be in meetings all afternoon and might be unavailable, suggesting I'd be late coming home. She took this as a sign that everything was normal, her usual control over me intact. Perhaps she even thought I'd be in a good mood later, maybe open to some make-up affection. Little did she know. At 1:20, Laura prepared for her afternoon with Buddy. She drove to the park and dropped him off, as expected, so that he could jog back to our house and sneak in through the side gate. I positioned myself behind a large bush, hidden from view, waiting for the right moment. By 1:45, Laura appeared in the backyard, wearing nothing but a skimpy bikini. She unlocked the back gate, peeked out into the alley to make sure the coast was clear, and then lounged under the pecan tree. That was my signal. I had left the side gate slightly ajar earlier. Quietly, I slipped back through, circled to the front of the house, and used my key to enter. Walking across the very spot where my suspicions had first been confirmed days earlier, I went straight to the spare room and grabbed a cordless drill and some hardware. Within a minute, I had installed a hasp on the inside of the master bedroom door, leaving a lock hanging. I also placed a small piece of wood between the door and the frame to make sure it couldn't fully close, just in case Laura tried to shut it. With my heart pounding, I moved to the guest room, picking up the video camera and slipping the steel knuckles onto my right hand. I sat down, adrenaline surging through me as I waited. So many things could go wrong. Maybe I'd forgotten a detail, Maybe Laura would unlock the gate early, or maybe Buddy would show up sooner than expected. But none of that happened. Everything remained perfectly in place. And with my breath steady and my hands ready, I waited for the final act. I awaited the final assault, planned and executed on my terms. Standing ready, brass knuckles on my right hand, I held the video camera, peering through the slightly open guest bedroom door. The dark hallway might affect the video quality, but I knew the audio would be crucial. The sliding glass door moved, and I heard voices. Laura's laughter mingled with a low male growl. Imagining his hands on her made my blood boil. I caught a glimpse of my wife, her bikini top already discarded, leading her lover into the master bedroom. They didn't even bother closing the door. I followed at a distance, still recording. Kneeling at the door, I watched as Buddy embraced Laura, who closed her eyes and unbuttoned his shirt. Carefully, I placed the video camera on the dresser just inside the door, ensuring it captured the unfolding scene on the bed. This waiting was excruciating, but I needed to record the undeniable evidence, leaving no room for denial. My anger simmered as I retreated from the door, limiting my glances to avoid detection. From what I could see, the two were now fully undressed, slowly indulging in each other with no rush, knowing they had the entire afternoon ahead. I overheard Laura referring to Buddy as Daddy, confirming my suspicions about her twisted fixation. My fury built, anticipating the confrontation that was to come. Buddy's voice expressed his eagerness, and when I peeked again, I saw him between Laura's legs, then heard her scream in pleasure as they moved together, cursing and moaning. That was enough. I touched the brass knuckles for luck and silently approached the bed. Laura noticed me just as I forcefully shoved Buddy in the ribs, knocking him off her. She screamed as Buddy tumbled, and I yelled at him for violating my wife. Buddy's shocked face quickly morphed into the bullying demeanor I expected. He scrambled up, ready to deal with me. I backed off a few steps, watching as Buddy misinterpreted my move as a retreat. Laura, now on her knees, clutched the bed covers, screaming for me to stop and not hurt Buddy. As Buddy moved around the far corner of the bed, I took one running step and hurled myself into his chest, slamming the brass knuckles into his solar plexus. We crashed to the floor with my full weight on top of him, compressing his chest. In situations where breathing is compromised, everything else becomes secondary. Buddy struggled beneath me, a high-pitched wheezing noise escaping him as he tried to dislodge me. Panic flooded his eyes. I sat up, straddling him, watching as he clawed at the floor, trying to find some leverage to breathe. Then, I delivered the finishing blow. Raising my right hand high, I brought the brass knuckles down hard onto the center of Buddy's terrified face. I felt his bones crunch beneath the force of the punch, and blood poured from his ruined nose and mouth, leaving him incapacitated. I stood up, satisfied with the initial confrontation, and started toward the door, ignoring Laura's panic screams. It wasn't until she begged for help that I turned around. She thought I was leaving, but this was just the beginning of my psychological warfare. I kicked the small piece of wood from the door frame, shutting and locking the door with the hasp I had installed earlier. When I turned to face Laura, I saw the panic settle in as she realized we were all locked in together. She was still undressed, her vulnerability only making her more desperate. Her tone shifted from anger to pleading as she scrambled for an explanation. Paul, oh Paul, I know it looks bad, but he forced me into this. Buddy's a bully. He threatened to hurt me, to hurt you too. He said he'd destroy you if I didn't go along with it. I had no choice, I swear. I approached the bed slowly as she spilled out her excuses, keeping a calm, steely expression. Shut up, I said coldly. You're lying. I know you've been involved with him for months. Buddy was still on the floor, gurgling, trying to catch his breath as blood continued to drip from his nose. I glanced at him, making sure he wasn't about to die. I wanted him hurt, not dead. I rolled him onto his side, positioning him to prevent him from choking on the blood. Then, I retrieved several pairs of handcuffs from the top dresser drawer. I secured Buddy's ankles and wrists to the bed frame with 4 of the cuffs, ensuring he wouldn't be going anywhere. Turning back to Laura, I maneuvered her off the bed, her legs trembling as I forced her hands behind her back and cuffed them. I led her into the bathroom, and sat her on the toilet. She sat there, wide-eyed, as I stood over her, brass knuckles still on my right hand, ensuring she saw them. "Now," I said sternly, "you're going to tell me everything. I want to know how you met him, why you did it, and why you thought it was okay to betray me." I paused, my voice lowering as the reality of the situation hit her. "And I want to know about every other man you've been with over the last 10 years. Laura was visibly shaken, her mind racing as she realized the afternoon wasn't going to go as she had planned. Instead of her lover, she now had to face the consequences of her actions, and I had all the time in the world to make sure I got the answers I wanted. I knew some details about Laura's actions, but I wasn't sure how much more I would uncover. Questions lingered in my mind. Could she manipulate the truth, making her infidelity sound less severe? Would she dare to lie even now? Laura expressed reluctance, claiming she never intended for things to escalate like they had. She described how a forceful man had approached her at a party, hosted by the Holdens, and lured her upstairs, catching her off guard when no one was around to help. Curious, I asked, "What party was that?" I already knew it was Halloween, but I wanted to see if she'd stick to her lie. Laura speculated that Sue or Nick might have ratted her out, insisting Sue had only seen her at the New Year's party. But I countered, reminding her that it was Halloween when she had been with Buddy over 20 times. Pressing further, I asked who else might have revealed her secret. With defiance in her voice, Laura shot back, "You'd be surprised. Who do you think Loverboy's been bragging to? Maybe it was one of them. But that doesn't matter. Sue told you this? That be asterisk 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 H. I'll claw her eyes out. But I know something that'll wreck her marriage, and I'm not afraid to use it." She went on to mention Sue's fabricated lover, Rod, claiming that she and Sue had invented him just to feed me lies. Laura explained how they orchestrated conversations to get information from me, with Sue recording everything and storing it on DVDs, ready to release if needed. Laura clarified that Sue hadn't given her the details about the New Year's party, but she implied she could control how things played out. I told her I knew all about her affairs, including a phone call she made to Buddy in our entryway last Saturday, where she openly expressed her affection and revealed everything about their relationship. Convinced I had enough evidence, I calmly informed her that any further communication should be directed to my lawyer. "You'll be served legal papers in a couple of days," I said, making it clear I was done with her. Then, pulling out my phone, I called Anita Jackson. After a brief conversation, I chuckled and ended the call. Marching Laura back into the bedroom, I pointed out her lover, handcuffed, wheezing, and covered in blood. The sight almost made her vomit. I deposited her on the bed, turned off the video camera, and unlocked the bedroom door. Anita had been waiting outside in her car. I opened the door and said, "Well, Anita, I saved you some of him. His face isn't much to look at now, though. And here's his latest fling. My soon-to-be ex-wife, Laura. Anything you want to say to her?" Anita walked over to Laura, sitting on the bed, and slapped her hard across the cheek, evening out the red marks on her face. "You idiot!" Anita spat, berating Laura for her stupidity. She then turned to me, a mixture of anger and satisfaction on her face, and asked, "What are we going to do with him now?" "I'm inclined to toss this one out the door without his clothes," I said, smirking. "Let's see how long it takes him to find another woman. Companion, I mean." I joked about how I was relieved she'd left his tool intact. "Maybe I'll cut it off and give it to Laura as a keepsake. She seems to love it. As for his balls, I'm thinking of locking them away in a vault for safekeeping. Maybe it'll make the town safer for women." Anita chuckled but then mentioned her prenup. "If Buddy's caught cheating, he gets nothing. Maybe we'll drop him off at the hospital and make up a story about finding him injured in the garage. He'll cooperate, or he'll be left with less than nothing." As for Laura, I looked at her coldly and mentioned her attachment to her father, wondering aloud if there was more to that story from her upbringing. I reminded her that if things got messy in the divorce, her father might disinherit her, just like he had done with her sister to protect his reputation. Even after the divorce, I'd still have enough damning videos to keep her in line if necessary. I handed her some clothes and told her to get dressed. I tossed her the keys to her car and said, "Find yourself somewhere to think things over. Just so you know, your ATM and credit cards are frozen. Tossing her a quarter, I added sarcastically, "This is for a two-bit fancy woman like you." With Anita, I maintained a friendship of sorts, and we occasionally reached out when feeling low. Both of us were hesitant to get involved with anyone again after being so burned. I acknowledged the damage I had done to Laura during the ordeal, but I didn't regret it. Cruelty had a way of surfacing in a war like this. I vowed never to be in that position again. As for Buddy, Anita's insurance covered his basic facial reconstruction, and she cut him loose with just a little more money than the prenup required. After that, Buddy's efforts to attract new women fell flat, and he struggled for months to rebuild his life. Meanwhile, I sank deeper into depression, fading from public view. Laura accepted a fair divorce settlement and moved in with her sister. She sought help, coming to grips with how severely she had miscalculated everything. Nature documentaries about predator-prey dynamics now made her sick, and terms like alpha dog or pecking order triggered nightmares about that fateful night. She occasionally missed me, but I never felt the same for her.